The great doors of the Galaxy Council chamber opened with a loud sound that made everyone look up. Tejo walked into the room slowly. His black shoes made small clicking sounds on the smooth white floor. He wore a simple dark blue suit that looked plain next to all the colorful robes and strange clothes the other beings wore. Around him sat the most powerful creatures in the galaxy. Some had 6 arms. Others had skin that changed colors like a rainbow. A few floated in glass tanks filled with purple water, but they all had one thing in common. They all looked at Tejo like he was a bug that had crawled into their fancy dinner party. Tejo found his seat at the very back of the room. It was a small chair made of cheap metal. The other beings sat on big golden thrones or soft cushions that glowed with their own light. The message was clear. Humans did not matter here. Chancellor Velthon stood up from his massive throne. He was 12 feet tall with gray skin and 4 eyes that never blinked. His voice was deep and loud when he spoke. It filled the whole room. "We call this meeting to order," Velthon said. "Today we will deal with the human problem once and for all." The other council members made sounds of agreement. Some clicked their claws. Others buzzed like angry insects. A few just nodded their many heads. Tejo sat quietly. He had expected this day would come. Humans had been part of the galaxy for 300 years now. At first, the other species had ignored them. Humans were new and weak. They had just learned how to travel between stars. But lately, human colonies were growing fast. Human ships were showing up in more places. Some of the older species were getting worried. Velthon picked up a golden tablet and began to read from it. "The Galaxy Council has been watching human expansion with great concern. Your species grows too fast. You take too much space. You ask too many questions. This cannot continue." Tejo folded his hands in his lap. He knew what was coming next. "Therefore," Velthon continued, "the Council has decided to offer humans a generous deal. We will allow your species to continue existing if you follow these simple rules." The Chancellor's 4 eyes focused on Tejo. "First, humans must leave 47 of their colony worlds immediately. These planets are too close to important trade routes. Other species need them more than you do." Murmurs of approval came from around the room. Several aliens nodded their heads. "Second," Velthon said, "humans must give up all military ships bigger than a small frigate. Your warships make other species nervous. Peace is better when weak species stay weak." More sounds of agreement filled the chamber. Tejo noticed how the other beings smiled when they heard this. They had sharp teeth. "Third," the Chancellor went on, "humans will accept guidance from the Galaxy Council for the next 200 years. We are older and wiser. We know what is best for young species like yours." Tejo almost laughed at that word. Guidance. He knew what it really meant. "Fourth and finally," Velthon said with a big smile, "humans will pay tribute to the Council every year. This tribute will be 60% of everything your home planet Earth makes. This will help pay for the peace we give you." The room went quiet. Everyone waited to see what the human would say. Some aliens leaned forward in their seats. Others whispered to each other in languages that sounded like music or grinding metal. Velthon set down his tablet and looked directly at Tejo. "These terms are very fair. No other young species has ever been offered such a good deal. You have 1 day to give us your answer." Tejo stood up slowly. The room became even more quiet. He could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. He had practiced this moment many times. He knew exactly what he needed to say. "Honored Chancellor," Tejo said in a calm voice, "I do not need a day to answer." Some of the aliens looked surprised. They had expected begging or crying, maybe anger. But Tejo sounded as calm as if he was ordering lunch. "The Terran Federation has considered your offer very carefully," Tejo continued. "We have discussed it with our leaders. We have thought about what it would mean for our people." Velthon nodded. He was sure the humans would accept. They were weak and new. They had no choice. "Our answer is no," Tejo said. The room exploded with noise. Aliens shouted in dozens of different languages. Some stood up so fast they knocked over their chairs. Others made angry sounds like roaring or screaming. Velthon raised one of his massive hands for silence. Slowly, the noise died down. "You refuse our generous offer?" he asked. His voice was dangerous now. "Yes," Tejo said simply. "But we do not just refuse. The Terran Federation officially declares total war on the Galaxy Council and all member species." For a moment, nobody made any sound at all. Then the room erupted again. But this time, many of the aliens were laughing. The idea was so crazy that some of them could not stop giggling. A thin blue alien with tentacles for arms wiped tears from her eyes. "Did the human just declare war on the entire galaxy?" she asked. "I think he did," said a creature that looked like a walking tree. "How cute." Velthon held up his hand again. When the room was quiet, he looked down at Teho with something like pity. "Little human," he said, "do you understand what you have just done? Your species has been in space for only 300 years. We have been building empires for thousands of years. You have perhaps 50 worlds. We have 50,000. You are children playing with toys." Teho smiled for the first time since entering the room. It was not a nice smile. "Chancellor Velthon," he said, "you are about to learn something very important about humans." "What is that?" Velthon asked. "We do not kneel," Teho said. Then he turned and walked toward the door. Behind him, the aliens began laughing again. They thought this was the funniest thing they had ever heard. A species of barely 300 years declaring war on civilizations that were older than their sun. As Teho reached the great doors, he stopped and turned back one last time. The laughter was still going on. Some aliens were pointing at him and making jokes in their strange languages. "You will understand soon enough," Teho said quietly. Then he walked out of the chamber. The laughter continued for several more minutes. None of the council members noticed the small device Teho had left under his chair. It was already sending a message across space to Earth. The message had only 2 words: execute order. 3 days later, the laughter would stop forever. Admiral Kyungsu stood in the command center of the space station orbiting Earth. Around him, hundreds of people worked at glowing screens. Red lights flashed as urgent messages came in from across human space. The order had been given. The war had begun. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Boram from her station, "we are getting responses from all sectors. The fleet commanders are ready." Kyungsu nodded. He had been preparing for this day for 20 years. Every human military officer had. They all knew this moment would come eventually. The aliens would try to make humans bow down, and humans would refuse. "Send the activation codes," Kyungsu said. "All of them." Boram's fingers moved quickly over her controls. Across the galaxy, human ships that had been pretending to be simple trading vessels received new orders. Mining platforms that looked peaceful began to unfold hidden weapons. Colonies that seemed like quiet farming towns activated defense systems that had been buried underground for decades. The Galaxy Council had made a big mistake. They thought they knew how strong humans were. They were very wrong. Dr. Haewon walked into the command center carrying a thick folder full of papers. She was the head of human military intelligence. Her job was to know everything about alien species and their armies. She had been doing this job very well for many years. "Admiral," she said, "I have the final numbers you requested." "Tell me," Kyungsu said. Haewon opened her folder. "The Galaxy Council thinks we have 300 warships. We actually have 2,400. They think we have 50 colonies. We have 212. They think our biggest guns can destroy a city. Our biggest guns can crack a moon in half." The Admiral smiled. It was not a happy smile. "And they think we are children who just learned to build rockets." "Yes, sir," Haewon said. "They have no idea that we have been studying their technology for 3 centuries. Every alien ship that ever visited human space was secretly scanned. Every alien weapon was analyzed. Every alien weakness was recorded. Around the command center, officers were reporting good news. Human fleets were moving into position. Weapons that had been hidden were coming online. Soldiers who had been pretending to be farmers were putting on armor. "What about Captain Dongmin?" Kyungsu asked. "His squadron is in position near the Vextari border," Haewon replied. "They should make contact with an enemy patrol in 6 hours." Kyungsu looked at the big screen that showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked human positions. Blue dots showed alien fleets. Soon some of those blue dots would disappear forever. "Sir," called out Commander Inho from across the room, "we are getting a transmission from Ambassador Teho. He made it safely back to our embassy ship." "Good," the Admiral said. "Now we can begin." On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Dongmin sat in the captain's chair of his warship. The ship was called the Soul's Revenge. It looked like a normal human cargo vessel from the outside, but hidden inside were weapons that could destroy an entire enemy fleet. "Captain," said his weapons officer, "sensors are picking up 4 Vextari ships approaching. They are moving fast. Dongmin had fought aliens before, but always in small fights. This would be different. This would be the first real battle of the war. He wanted to make it count. All crew to battle stations, he announced over the ship's speakers. This is not a drill. We are about to show the galaxy what humans can really do. The Vextari ships were beautiful. They looked like silver birds flying through space. Their weapons glowed with blue energy. They had been flying between stars for over 2,000 years. They thought they were the masters of space combat. They were about to learn otherwise. Incoming transmission from the lead enemy ship, reported Communications Officer Yunji. Put it on screen, Dongmin said. The face of a Vextari commander appeared. He had gray skin and 4 eyes like Chancellor Velthon. But this one was younger and more arrogant. Human vessel, the alien said in perfect English. You are in restricted space. Turn around immediately or we will destroy you. Dongmin stood up and walked closer to the screen. Vextari commander, he said politely. I have a message for you from the human government. What message? The alien asked. We do not kneel, Dongmin said. Then he nodded to his weapons officer. The soul's revenge suddenly changed. Hidden panels slid open. Massive guns emerged from secret compartments. Energy shields powered up with a blue glow. In 3 seconds, the cargo ship became a battleship. The Vextari commander's 4 eyes went wide with shock. Impossible, he whispered. Fire all weapons, Dongmin ordered. The human ship unleashed destruction like nothing the aliens had ever seen. Beams of pure energy cut through the Vextari shields like they were made of paper. Missiles that moved faster than light found their targets before the aliens could even react. The first enemy ship exploded in a ball of fire. The second one tried to run but was cut in half by a laser beam. The third ship managed to fire once before it was destroyed. The fourth ship sent out a distress call that lasted 2 seconds before it was turned into space dust. The entire battle lasted 14 minutes. When it was over, there was nothing left of the Vextari patrol except glowing wreckage. Sir, reported the weapons officer, all enemy ships destroyed. We took no damage. Dongmin sat back down in his chair. Around him, his crew was cheering. But the captain was not celebrating yet. This was just the beginning. Send a message to Admiral Kyung-soo, he said. Tell him that Operation Thunder has begun successfully. The galaxy now knows we are serious. Back on Earth, Kyung-soo received the message with satisfaction. The first battle was won, but there would be many more to come. Dr. Haewon, he said. How long do you think it will take for news of this battle to reach the Galaxy Council? About 6 hours at maximum speed, she replied. But Admiral, I do not think they will believe it at first. Why not? Because, Haewon said with a small smile, they still think we are primitive children. They will assume the Vextari patrol had some kind of accident. They will not want to believe that humans destroyed 4 of their best ships so easily. Kyung-soo nodded. Then we will have to send a stronger message. He turned to face the main screen. Across human space, 2,000 hidden warships were moving toward alien territory. Each ship carried weapons that the Galaxy Council could not imagine. Each crew had trained for years for this moment. Begin Phase 2, the Admiral ordered. Target all alien military bases within 50 light-years of human space. I want them to understand that their age of bullying weaker species is over. As the orders went out, Kyung-soo thought about Ambassador Tai-ho's words in the council chamber. The aliens had laughed when humans declared war. They thought it was funny that such a young species would dare to fight back. Soon they would understand that humans had learned something important during their 300 years in space. They had learned that freedom was worth any price. And they had learned that sometimes, the only way to keep your freedom was to take it away from those who would steal it. The war machine of humanity was fully awake now. And it was very, very hungry. 3 months had passed since the war began. Chancellor Velthon stood in his private office staring at reports that made no sense. Each piece of paper told the same impossible story. Human forces were winning everywhere. His aide, a nervous creature with purple skin and 6 arms, brought him another stack of bad news. Chancellor, the aide said quietly, the Mirdani have lost contact with their entire deep space fleet. Velthon grabbed the report and read it quickly. 200 Mirdani warships had simply vanished. The last message said they were under attack by human forces. Then nothing. How many ships did the humans use? Velthon asked. Intelligence reports suggest 12 human vessels, sir. The Chancellor threw the paper across the room. 12 ships destroyed 200? That is impossible. But it was not impossible. It was happening again and again across the galaxy. The Crixtal insect empire had lost 37 hive worlds in 2 weeks. The plant-like Thorian collective had 3 entire star systems go silent. Everywhere human ships appeared, alien forces disappeared. On the human colony world of New Busan, war correspondent Hyo Jin was recording another broadcast for the Galactic News Networks. She stood in front of a communications array that was sending her words to billions of beings across space. "This is Hyo Jin reporting from New Busan," she said into the camera. "Today marks the 90th day of the war between humanity and the Galaxy Council. The results continue to shock military experts across known space." Behind her, human soldiers were unloading weapons from ships that had arrived that morning. The weapons were bigger than anything the aliens thought humans could build. What began as what many species called a joke has become their worst nightmare, Hyo Jin continued. Human forces have won every major engagement. More importantly, entire star systems are now choosing to leave the Galaxy Council rather than face human attacks. This was true. Fear was spreading faster than human ships. When aliens heard that humans were coming to their system, many decided to surrender before the fighting started. It was easier than being destroyed. In the Spiral Arm Beta sector, a trader named Minsu was having a very different kind of conversation. He sat across from Governor Zektar of the Hegemony Worlds. For 15 years, Minsu had been selling goods to alien colonies, but that had just been his cover story. "You understand what I am offering?" Minsu asked the governor. Zektar was a large creature with thick armor and small black eyes. He had ruled his worlds with fear for decades, but now he was afraid too. "You want me to abandon the Galaxy Council?" Zektar said. "Join the humans instead." "Not join," Minsu corrected. "We want you to be free. Make your own choices. The Galaxy Council has been stealing from your people for centuries. We can prove it." Minsu placed a small device on the table. It showed numbers and charts that made Zektar's eyes grow wide. "These are records from the Council Treasury," Minsu explained. "Your worlds have been sending tribute for 800 years. Do you know where that money went?" Zektar studied the numbers. His people had been told the tribute paid for protection and services. But the records showed something else. The money had gone to build palaces and armies for the council members. Very little had come back to help his worlds. "You have been slaves," Minsu said simply. "We are offering you a chance to be free." 3 hours later, Governor Zektar announced that his worlds were leaving the Galaxy Council. His fleet would no longer fight for the aliens who had been robbing him. He was not the first to make this choice. He would not be the last. Back in the council chambers, panic was growing stronger every day. Species that had been allies for thousands of years were turning against each other. Some blamed the council leadership for starting a war they could not win. Others wanted to surrender to the humans before it was too late. Chancellor Velthon called an emergency meeting. The great chamber that had once been full of proud alien leaders now had many empty seats. Some species had already left the council. Others had been destroyed by human attacks. "We must find a way to stop this madness," Velthon announced to those who remained. "The humans are destroying everything we have built." Fleet Admiral Cordon of the Stellar Navy stood up. He was an old warrior with scars from 100 battles. "Chancellor," he said, "my fleets cannot fight an enemy we do not understand. Human tactics make no sense. Their weapons should not work as well as they do. Their ships appear where they should not be able to go." "What do you mean?" asked Councillor Yathara. "They seem to know exactly where our forces will be before we get there," Cordon explained. "They hit our supply lines before we even send them. They attack our weakest points with perfect timing. It is like they can read our minds. What the aliens did not know was that humans could not read minds. But they had done something almost as good. For 300 years, every human who had contact with aliens had been gathering information. Traders, diplomats, tourists, students, all of them had been watching and learning. A human named Sunho sat in a secret base on the moon, looking at maps that showed every alien fleet movement. He was the head of human strategic planning. His job was to know where the enemy would be before they knew it themselves. "The Vextari Third Fleet is moving toward the Kepler system," reported his assistant Ga Young. "They should arrive in 18 hours. Sunho smiled and marked the location on his map. "Send orders to Battle Group 7. They should reach Kepler in 16 hours. The Vextari will find a very warm welcome waiting for them. This had been happening for months. Human forces always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. Alien commanders thought it was impossible luck. They did not realize that humans had been planning this war since the day they first met aliens. "Sir," Ga-Young said, "we are getting reports from our sleeper agents. The Council is starting to panic. Some members are talking about making peace." "Too late for that," Sun-Ho replied. "They had their chance for peace. They chose war instead. Now they get to see what humans do to bullies." In another part of space, Captain Dongmin was leading a group of human ships toward a Krixtal military base. The insect creatures had built their base inside a giant asteroid. They thought it was impossible to attack. They were wrong. "All ships," Dongmin announced over the radio. "Target the weak points we identified. Remember, we want to send a message with this attack." The human ships moved into position around the asteroid. Their weapons powered up with a sound like thunder. The Krixtal defenders tried to fight back, but their weapons could not reach through the human shields. In 10 minutes, the asteroid base was broken into pieces. The Krixtal fleet that had been hiding inside was destroyed completely, and in the wreckage, the humans left a message beacon that would broadcast in every galactic language. "To all species of the Galaxy Council," the message said, "this is what happens to those who threaten human freedom. Surrender now or face the same fate. The choice is yours." The message was heard across the galaxy. On 1,000 worlds, alien leaders gathered to discuss what to do. Some wanted to keep fighting. Others wanted to run away to distant galaxies. Most just wanted the war to end, but Chancellor Velthon was not ready to give up. He had spent his entire life building the Council's power. He would not let a species of newcomers destroy everything he had worked for. "Send word to all remaining fleets," he ordered his aide. "We will gather our forces for one final battle. Every ship, every soldier, everything we have left. The humans may have won some fights, but they cannot defeat the combined might of the entire galaxy." His aide looked worried. "Chancellor, our intelligence suggests the humans have been holding back most of their forces. If we gather our fleets in one place, they might bring their full strength to bear against us." Velthon turned his 4 eyes toward his aide. "Then we will finally see what these humans are really capable of. And when we crush them completely, the galaxy will remember why the Council rules and young species obey." But deep in space, Admiral Kyung-Soo was reading the same intelligence reports. He knew the aliens were planning their big attack. He also knew it would be their last mistake. "Dr. Haewon," he said, "how many ships can we field for the final battle?" "All of them, sir," she replied. 2,400 warships plus support vessels. "The largest fleet humanity has ever assembled," Kyung-Soo nodded. "And the special weapons?" "Ready for deployment, Admiral. The aliens will not know what hit them." The war was about to reach its climax, and the Galaxy Council was about to learn that sometimes the hunters become the hunted. The attack on the Council intelligence facility in the Rigel system began at dawn. Human ships came out of hyperspace like angry hornets, surrounding the massive station that floated in the darkness between stars. This was not just any military target. This station held the deepest secrets of the Galaxy Council. Commander Jae-won led the boarding team through the station's broken hull. She was an expert in alien computer systems and had been waiting years for this chance. Behind her, human soldiers moved carefully through corridors filled with strange technology. "The main computer core should be 3 levels down," reported Sergeant Wooseok over the radio. "Resistance is light." Most of the alien defenders ran when they saw us coming. Jae-won was not surprised. The Council's forces had been running from humans for months now. Fear was their main enemy these days. The computer core was a massive room filled with glowing crystals and floating screens. Alien data flowed through the crystals like liquid light. Jae-won connected her equipment to the main system and began her work. "This is incredible," she whispered as the first files appeared on her screen. "They have records going back over 3,000 years. What she found in those files would change everything. The first discovery was a list of species. 47 different alien races were listed with dates and locations. Next to each name was a single word: terminated. Jae-won's hands shook as she opened the first file. It contained the complete records of a species called the Velkari. They had been given the same ultimatum that humans received: surrender most of their worlds, give up their military, accept council rule, and pay tribute. The Velkari had refused. The file showed what happened next. Council fleets had surrounded every Velkari world. When the aliens still refused to surrender, the Council had used weapons that poisoned entire planets. Billions of Velkari had died in agony. Their entire species was wiped out in 3 months. "Commander," called out Corporal Minho from across the room. "You need to see this." Jaewon ran to where Minho was standing. He had found another computer terminal that was showing video records. The screen displayed a council meeting from 200 years ago. In the video, Chancellor Velthon's predecessor was speaking to the assembly. "The hegemony of Zarthul has rejected our generous offer," the old chancellor said. "We will proceed with Protocol 7. Protocol 7. Jaewon had never heard that term before. She searched the files until she found the definition. Her blood turned cold when she read it. Protocol 7 was complete genocide. When a species refused the Council's ultimatum, they were marked for total extinction. Not just their military, not just their governments. Every man, woman, and child of their species was to be hunted down and killed. "Get Dr. Young-suk down here immediately," Jaewon ordered. "She needs to see this." Dr. Young-suk was the human expeditions expert on alien history and archaeology. She had spent 20 years studying the ruins of dead civilizations. When she arrived in the computer core, Jaewon showed her the terrible files. "I knew it," Young-suk whispered as she read the records. "I have been finding evidence of this for years, but I could never prove it." "What do you mean?" Jaewon asked. Young-suk sat down heavily in a chair. "Do you remember the crystal cities on Kepler 7? The ones that were supposed to be abandoned because of a plague?" "Yes, there was no plague. I found weapons residue in the crystal, the same kind of weapons the Council used to poison the Velkari worlds. The crystal cities were not abandoned. Their builders were murdered." The two women spent the next 6 hours going through file after file. Each one told the same horrible story. A species would develop space travel. They would grow strong enough to challenge Council power. The Council would offer them the ultimatum. When they refused, Protocol 7 would begin. 47 times this had happened. 47 entire species had been erased from existence. Their worlds had been given to Council members or left empty as warnings to others. "How many people died?" Jaewon asked quietly. Young-suk was adding numbers on her computer. "Based on the population records, approximately 800 billion sentient beings have been murdered by the Galaxy Council over the past 3,000 years. The number was so large it was hard to understand. 800 billion thinking, feeling creatures had been killed simply because they refused to be slaves." "There is more," Young-suk said, pointing to another file. "Look at this." The file contained the Council's plans for humanity. It was labeled Project Final Solution, Human Problem. The document was dated 3 days before Ambassador Tae-ho had received the ultimatum. The plan was detailed and horrifying. If humans accepted the ultimatum, they would be allowed to exist for exactly 50 years. During that time, the Council would slowly reduce human population through controlled famines and diseases. At the end of 50 years, the last humans would be killed and their worlds given to more deserving species. If humans refused the ultimatum, Protocol 7 would begin immediately. Human worlds would be destroyed with the same poison weapons that had killed the Velkari. The plan estimated that all humans could be eliminated within 6 months. "They never intended to let us live," Jaewon said. "The ultimatum was just theater." "Worse than that," Young-suk replied. "Look at the appendix." The appendix contained a list of potential threats. These were species that might someday become strong enough to challenge the Council. Humans were at the top of the list, but there were 12 other species marked for future elimination. "They were going to kill us all eventually," Young-suk said. "Every species in the galaxy that showed any sign of independence or strength. The Council wanted to be the only power left." Jaewon began copying all the files to portable storage devices. This information had to reach every remaining species in the galaxy. They needed to know what the Council really was. "Commander," reported Sergeant Woo-seok over the radio, "we have a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up a large Council fleet heading this way. We have maybe 2 hours before they arrive." "Copy all the files," Jaewon ordered her team. "Everything. Even if it takes all night." But they would not need all night. The most important discovery was still waiting for them. In the deepest part of the computer system, Young-suk found a file that made her gasp out loud. It was labeled The Great Lie. "Jaewon," she called out. "Come here. You have to see this." The file contained the true history of the Galaxy Council. Everything the Council had taught other species about galactic history was false. The council claimed they were ancient and wise rulers who had brought peace to the galaxy. The truth was very different. 3,000 years ago, the galaxy had been full of different species living in peace. There had been trade and cooperation between worlds. Then the council species had formed an alliance. Not for peace, but for conquest. They had started a series of wars that lasted for centuries. Billions had died in those wars. When it was over, the council controlled most of the galaxy, but their greatest crime was what they did next. They had rewritten history itself. They destroyed all records of the time before their rule. They taught young species that the galaxy had always been chaotic and violent before the council brought order. It was all lies. The council had not brought peace. They had destroyed peace and then claimed credit for ending the chaos they had created. "We have to get this information out," Young Suk said. "Every species in the galaxy needs to know the truth." Jae-won was already working on it. She activated the station's emergency broadcast system and began transmitting the files to every corner of space. The transmission was powerful enough to reach thousands of worlds. "This is Commander Jae-won of the Terran Federation," she announced on all frequencies. "I am broadcasting from the captured Council Intelligence Facility. What you're about to see will shock you. The Galaxy Council has been lying to you for 3,000 years. The files began streaming across space. Video records of genocide, documents proving the Council's plans for future murders, evidence that the Council had rewritten galactic history to hide their crimes. On 1,000 worlds, alien leaders watched in horror as the truth was revealed. They learned that their wise and ancient rulers were actually mass murderers who had been planning to kill them all eventually. The effect was immediate. Panic spread through what remained of the Council's territory. Species that had been loyal for centuries began declaring independence. Military units refused orders to fight humans. Some alien fleets even turned their weapons on Council forces. Chancellor Velthon received the broadcast in his private chambers. As he watched the evidence of his people's crimes, his 4 eyes filled with rage and fear. The humans had not just defeated his military forces, they had destroyed the foundation of Council power. "Sir," his aide reported, "we are receiving surrender offers from 17 different star systems. They want to join the humans." Velthon crushed his communication device in his massive hand. "No," he roared. "I will not let these upstart humans destroy everything we have built. Prepare the final weapon." His aide's face went pale. "Sir, the final weapon has never been tested. We do not know what it might do." "I do not care," Velthon said. "If we cannot rule the galaxy, then no one will." But in the depths of space, human forces were already moving to stop him. Admiral Kyung-soo had been expecting this moment. 1 year later, Ambassador Taeho stood in the same chamber where the Galaxy Council had once ruled with fear and lies. But everything was different now. The golden thrones were gone. The symbols of council power had been removed. In their place were simple chairs arranged in a circle, where every species sat as equals. The great windows that had once looked out on council warships now showed construction vessels from dozens of worlds working together to build something new. They were creating a space station that would belong to all species, not just the powerful ones. Taeho wore the same simple blue suit he had worn on that day when he declared war. But now he carried a different title. He was not just an ambassador anymore. He was the first speaker of the Galactic Federation of Equal Species. "The meeting will come to order," Taeho announced to the assembled delegates. Around the circle sat representatives from over 200 different worlds. Some were former council members who had surrendered early in the war. Others were species that had been freed from council rule. A few were civilizations that had been hiding in remote parts of the galaxy, too afraid to reveal themselves while the council existed. The new federation was not like the old council. There were no big thrones for important species and small chairs for weak ones. Every delegate had the same size seat. Every species had the same number of votes. It did not matter if you had been traveling in space for 3,000 years or 300. All voices were heard. Dr. Si Jin, the new head of Human Diplomatic Relations, stood up to address the assembly. She had helped design the Federation's charter after the war ended. It was very different from the laws that the Council had used. "Today we celebrate the first anniversary of the end of the Council Wars," Se-jin said. "But more importantly, we celebrate the birth of something that has never existed before in galactic history. A government where no species rules over another. The delegates made sounds of approval in dozens of different languages. Some clapped their hands. Others clicked their claws or buzzed their wings. The Merdani delegates splashed the water in their tanks with their tails. The old council claimed they brought peace to the galaxy. Sijin continued. We now know that was a lie. They brought order through fear and murder. True peace can only exist between equals. The Federation's first year had not been easy. After the final battle that destroyed the Council's home system, there had been chaos across the galaxy. Some species had tried to create their own empires. Others had turned to piracy and raiding. A few had declared war on their neighbors, but humans had been ready for this. Admiral Wu Jin, who now commanded the Federation Defense Force, had created a new kind of military. Instead of one species controlling all the warships, the Defense Force was made up of volunteers from every member world. The Defense Force exists for one purpose only, Wu Jin had explained when it was created, to protect the freedom of all species. We will never be used to conquer or enslave. Any species that tries to recreate the old council will be stopped. This promise had been tested several times. When the hegemony of Veltar tried to force 3 smaller species to become their slaves, Federation ships had arrived within days. The fighting was brief. The Veltar learned that the galaxy's new protectors were very serious about their job. The most important change was what happened to information. Under the Council, knowledge had been controlled by the powerful. Only certain species were allowed to have advanced technology or historical records. The Federation changed all of that. Everything was shared now. Scientific discoveries made on one world were freely given to all others. Historical archives that had been hidden for centuries were open to everyone. Young species could learn from the mistakes and successes of older ones. This had led to incredible progress. In just 1 year, dozens of species had made breakthrough discoveries by combining their knowledge with others. The Thorian plant scientists had learned new growing techniques from human farmers. Human engineers had improved their ships by studying Vexitari designs. The insect-like Krixtal had shared their hive mind communication methods, allowing other species to work together better. But the most important sharing was the truth about galactic history. Dr. Youngsuk had spent the year writing a new history book that told the real story of the galaxy. It was being translated into every known language and distributed to all worlds. Children across the galaxy were learning that their ancestors had not been saved by the Council. They had been enslaved by them. They were learning that different species had once lived in peace and could do so again. We must never forget the lessons of the past, Teho said, as the anniversary meeting continued. The Council was able to rule for 3,000 years because species were kept apart and afraid of each other. We were told that other beings were dangerous and strange. We were taught that only the Council could keep us safe. He gestured toward the mixed group of delegates around him. Look around this room. Do you see dangerous enemies? Or do you see neighbors who want the same things you do? Safety for their families, food for their children, the freedom to live their lives without fear. The delegates looked at each other and many of them smiled. It was true. Despite having different shapes and colors, despite breathing different kinds of air and eating different foods, they all wanted similar things. The humans have given us a great gift, said Delegate Moran of the Spiral Collective. Not just freedom from the Council, but freedom from the fear that kept us apart. Teho shook his head. Humans did not give you freedom. Freedom cannot be given. It can only be taken. You took your freedom when you chose to stand up to those who would enslave you. This was an important point. The Federation's founding principles made it clear that freedom was not something granted by governments. It was something that belonged to all thinking beings, simply because they existed. The new constitution had been written by representatives from 50 different species. It was simple enough that anyone could understand it, but strong enough to prevent another council from rising. The most important rule was called the Never Again Principle. No species could demand tribute from another. No species could claim ownership of another's worlds. No species could declare themselves superior to others based on age, technology, or military strength. Any species that tried to recreate the council system would find themselves at war with everyone else in the galaxy. What about Earth? Asked Delegate Yathara of the former council territories. The humans led the war that freed us all. Do they not deserve some special status? Teho smiled at the question. He had been expecting it for months. Earth holds no special position in the Federation except this. We remember what it was like to be threatened with extinction. We remember what it felt like to be told we were inferior because we were young. We will never let that happen to anyone else. This answer satisfied most delegates, but some still worried about human intentions. Humans had the most powerful military in the galaxy. Their technology was more advanced than anyone had realized. What would stop them from becoming the new council? Dr. Sejan addressed this concern directly. Humans could have conquered the galaxy after defeating the council. Our fleets were victorious everywhere. Most species would have surrendered if we had demanded it, but conquest was never our goal. She activated a holographic display that showed human military strength before and after the war. We are reducing our fleet by 60% over the next 5 years. The ships we keep will be integrated into the Federation Defense Force under joint command. We are sharing all our military technology with other species so that no one will ever again face such an imbalance of power. This announcement caused excited discussion among the delegates. Many species had been asking for access to human weapons technology. Now they would get it freely. Why? Asked Delegate Cordan, who had once been a council fleet admiral. Why give up the advantage that made you victorious? Tejo stood up to answer this question personally, because our goal was never to rule others. Our goal was to make sure that no one rules others. A galaxy where only humans have advanced weapons is not free. It is just another kind of prison with different guards. As the meeting continued, delegates discussed plans for the future. New trade routes were being established between former enemies. Scientific exchanges were sharing knowledge across species barriers. Cultural programs were helping different beings understand each other better. The galaxy was becoming something it had never been before. Not a collection of empires competing for dominance, but a community of neighbors working together. But there were still challenges. Some species found it hard to trust after centuries of fear. Others struggled with the idea that they were equal to beings they had been taught to look down upon. A few remote groups still believed the council had been right and humans were dangerous invaders. Change is never easy, acknowledged Tejo as the meeting drew to a close. Some of us carry scars from the old system. Some of us still hear the council's lies in our heads. But every day we choose to work together instead of fighting each other. We become stronger. The final vote of the day was on a proposal to create a galactic memorial. It would honor the memory of the 47 species that had been destroyed by the council. Their names would be carved in stone,